You probably know Kenzo as that colorful fashion label that is worn by sophisticated street fashion aficionados that want to be slightly different than their contemporaries. But all of us, right here, you watching at home or in your office or wherever the heck you might be, you know better than that. Takada Kenzo was an unlikely hero, living in a different world of acceptance, but it didn't stop him from being a revolutionary. On this special edition of WTH, we celebrate that man, etching his name further into history. I'm your boy Reggie Casual, and this is Takada Kenzo. Takada Kenzo was born in 1939 in Hyogo, Japan. He attended the Bunka Fashion School because if you were Japanese and any kind of designer at that time, you pretty much had to go there. Which comes with a bit of a caveat. Males were only allowed into Bunka in and after 1958, the first year Kenzo attended, paving the way for the likes of Yohji Yamamoto. Yes, the Yohji Yamamoto. Kenzo also won the Showman Fashion Award in 1961, cementing himself as a generational talent. After graduating, Kenzo took on some jobs and ultimately landed in Paris after his residence in Japan was demolished in 1964 due to the Olympics. His initial decision was to only stay in Paris a few months. Turns out, he stayed forever, but more on that later. Let's turn back the clock, because Kenzo lived in a different time of acceptance, like we said at the onset. You see, Kenzo happened to be a gay man in Japan during the 50s and 60s. And if you know anything about Japan now, you would know that in the 1950s, it wasn't the best place for him to fit in, to say the least. Which is why his move to Paris is a bit more understandable, but it didn't come without its struggles. Takada-san was determined to create something in Paris, and with very little money, he stayed. He sold his own designs for 25 francs a piece, and eventually worked for Passanti, a textile manufacturer, as a stylist. He eventually got a small break in 1970 after opening his first small boutique in a flea market. Using the equivalent of $200 USD, Kenzo created his first collection, all made with cotton. And wouldn't you know it, it was a breakout hit. Featured in Elle, and by 1971, his collection was presented in New York and Tokyo, winning him the Fashion Editor Club Prize for Japan. And by 1976, Kenzo opened up his first flagship in Paris, unsurprisingly named Kenzo. The 80s saw Kenzo hit his stride, opening up a men's line in 1983, a budget line, Album Kenzo in 1984, and by 1986, a kids line dubbed Kenzo Jungle. He experimented with fragrances and even directed his own film, Yume Yume no Ato. Kenzo's design style was often seen as colorful, dramatic, and bombastic, but strangely grounded compared to his contemporaries. While Rei Kawakubo was experimenting with Japanese punk avant-garde in the Hiroshima chic, and Issey Miyake was experiencing with shape and texture, Kenzo's most important element in his process was to make clothing that was wearable, more populous, while at the same time providing boldness. This fact becomes even more clear when you consider that one of Kenzo's primary influences in fashion design was one Yves Saint Laurent, post Dior of course. By 1993, Kenzo the brand reached its peak, enough for the LVMH group to straight up buy the label in its entirety. Kenzo himself stayed on until 1999, at which point he retired to pursue a career in art, dabbling in everything from furniture to costume design. Takada-san leaves behind a legacy of lifetime achievements, honorary positions, and a label that continues to be an outlier, having been the first to adopt a more populist approach to fashion design. His inspiration coming from the people that he followed, and his favorite subject, the jungle. This is a guy in Kenzo who actually rode an elephant in one of his runway shows, showcasing he was as much a showman as an artist. In January 2020, however, Kenzo announced he would be coming out with a new lifestyle brand, K3. But unfortunately, this year, 2020 to be exact, would be his last, as complications with the novel coronavirus would claim the life of the legend at 81 years of age. Nevertheless, Kenzo leaves behind a storied legacy that is not celebrated as much as it should be. So let's be the change in that. From $200 to international success, Kenzo loved, lived, and conquered a full life, only stopping his art when it was impossible for him to continue on. And let me be one of the many to say, Rest in power, legend. You deserve the highest of praise. And as always, keep it locked and keep it casual. Kind of like Kenzo. Yoroshiku onegai shimasu, and I'll see you guys in a minute.